DVD 11. And for number 11 of Don't Vote Democrat, we take a little breather. We recognize that there are some people running for office as Democrat who might be worthy of your vote. I will get to them later. We also recognize that Democrat as an individual, as a voter, her or himself, that's fine. This is a label that may someday have meaning again. It doesn't right now. So there's nothing wrong with carrying that label. And there's certainly something right about having principle aspirations with that label that might help you effect change the right way. But the current crop of Democrat leaders, elected officials, and I really say this across the board because I know no exceptions, they have horrible ideas. Or else, at minimum, they protect fellows in their party who have horrible ideas. So they themselves are not horrible, and none of them are. I don't think they are doing crimes against humanity. But if elected, their ideas would lead to horrible actions, unjust, and they are deliberate. So that puts horrible in the proper place. For many elected Democrats, this is a show, okay? It's a gesture that looks good at times. For many, it is blithe ignorance, but still they get along. Ignorance, perhaps, here's a remnant, civil rights. In the 1980s and 1990s, I think Democrats were perceived as the party that offered more civil rights for African Americans, and it was quicker to open up to Latino Americans' support. That's no longer. I mean, right now, the party of relative oppression of minorities is the Democrats, unfortunately. I classify Democrat leaders into 4 categories. There is LMN, I call it, the true Marxist, leveler, nihilist. The next category, and I don't think there are many of them, next is those in a protective club. They know their policies are bad, but they get mileage from it, so they will skillfully use them. There's also the defensive club Democrats. They're so afraid of the other side that in reactionary fashion, they do almost everything just to counter the opposite, even if what they do is bad. And then they don't even think. The ones that don't think, they just react. These 4 types, all of whom are dangerous, don't deserve to be elected. You know these types. They feel, they react, they see a headline. Study shows women earn 29% less than men. And, that's unjust! When they know or should know that there's at least 5 reasons, I talk about them in another video, why women earn less than men, and none of them have to do with misogyny or discrimination. To rectify these 4 types, all 4, then to make policy that might counteract it, and get votes, these 4 types become instead oppressive, peripatetic, quasi-rational statist totalitarians. Yeah, that's the rest of OPQRST. Here's an example. It is only Democrats, okay? Other parties don't venture here, who insist on pronoun use. They insist on changing the English language out of feelings for others. And it's not just for themselves, though. They insist that you call them by their preferred pronoun, and they get angry when you don't comply with their rules. Let's go to a bigger policy. These people insist on reacting to perceived injustices, especially where it affects minority groups. So any disparate effect of a policy, they blame now on racism, which causes schisms. A country that was almost over it. I mean, 12, 13 years ago, we were pretty much healed. And now we are back to pre-2000 levels of suspicion and likely actual racism because it's being fed by Democrat officials. Democrats who tout BLM, they don't have true Black Lives Matter interests. Instead, they have an attitude that we know better. They have an underlying attitude that blacks can't control themselves. This comes out of a lot of writing. Take a look, really, at Robin DiAngelo, at Ibram X. Kendi, at Michael Eric Dyson. It's despicable. And in terms of policy, if they really cared about the lives of modern African Americans, in terms of policy, if they really wanted to affect actions that improve the lives of Black Americans, they would be for school choice. They would be for full religious freedom. They would be for health care choices, and they certainly would not be for defunding the police. If they really cared about Black lives, if they were for Black lives truly, they would be against illegal immigration, and they would be against the perpetuation of Social Security, a system that is totally discriminatory against African Americans. If Black lives really mattered to these policymakers, they would be supporting our efforts in Somalia, fighting al-Shabaab, or in Chad and northern Nigeria, fighting against Boko Haram. That's where Black lives really are at risk, not in the most prosperous place for blacks ever in world history. Some Democrats still are worthy of your vote, ones who will break with their party orthodoxy and vote in their legislatures on principle over politics. Good for them. I support them in Connecticut where they exist. We love that. And, though I don't know any, ones who will flamboyantly speak out against the excess statements of people in their own party. Find me one. But if you do, potentially vote for her or him. Right now, there is a void. I'm Mark Stewart, number 12, next.